Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we take a look at every single episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
I'm Skylar.
And I am Ersa.
And this week, we are discussing Series 7, Episode 4, The Power of Three by Chris Chibnall.
Oh, it's a Chibnall episode.
I believe so.
That explains some things.
Unless I'm forgetting something, I think so.
It definitely felt like a Chibnall episode now that I know that.
Okay. So,
it has the vibes. It has the whimsy vibes.
Yeah. Here is my personal thought on this episode. It shares something, I think, with the next episode that we'll be discuss. Well, I don't think we'll be discussing it next week because I think we'll be due for a bonus episode. But the episode following it, The Angels Take Manhattan, is that I think the core hook of it and a lot of the ideas and the focus of it is good and kind of interesting up until the point where the third act resolution starts and it dives off a cliff.
Yeah, it's very much a case of, like, everything is good here except for, like, the way the actual, like, monster plot works out.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, from what I understand, there were some difficulties, and, like, the actor playing the bad guy was, like, awful to work with and, like, refused to do shit. So they kind of had to do the best with what they had, but it's just like, wow, this just gets stupid.
Yeah, my minor complaints about the 11th Doctor's Flanderization aside, and I'm sure we'll get there, this was, like, pretty solid setup. It's just the resolutions of stories are generally, no pun intended for Chibnall's current era, are a thing I think he struggles with, and as you said, Jeff, that's not necessarily his fault, but even in concept, the resolution has always kind of disappointed me from, like, the initial mystery.
Yeah.
So.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think everything with the cubes itself is very good, and the whole concept of the slow invasion is good, and then just
the concept of basically, like, pointing out that, like, hey, Amy and Rory can actually live a life now that like, they're not constantly being taken off by the Doctor, and, you know, some of the lines, like the discussion of how it's been 10 years for them, they think, of traveling, and all those other things, and it's like, this is really solid, and then it's not. And also, I think its placement is a little suspect. Like, I don't know, I honestly feel like parts of this episode, in terms of how Amy and Rory's arc go, parts of this episode should have happened at, like, the beginning of Series 6, and parts of it should have happened where it happened.
This feels like kind of the analog, not exactly the same, but of Murder on the Orient Express, as it's sort of like...
Mummy on the Orient Express.
Mummy? Fuck. You know what I mean. It's literally... Anyways, I'm a bimbo, shut up. The Mummy on the Orient Express has nominally Clara's last adventure with the Doctor, but, like, sort of a last hurrah, but then at the end they decide, for whatever reason, for, like, toxic dependency, etc., we'll get there, that she keeps on traveling with him, and I sort of get that vibe here of, like, they have this normal life and they're building it, yet they're still addicted to each other, and that this would thematically serve as a nice point of, like, they tried it and there's no turning back. The problem is that that's a little too heavy-handed when you consider what the next episode brings. I think that if there was more breathing room between the character work that happens here and what eventually happens to Amy and Rory, it would resonate better, but
Yeah.
To me, it's always the episode, it's like, oh, this is the one before they, like, fuck off forever. So, yeah.
in an
Yeah.
equally kind of underwhelming fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's like, it feels like parts of it, like the early beginning part and the part of realizing like, oh, we have these like two separate lives, feels like it could and should be an opener, not like a mid-season episode that's in fact actually right before their departure.
Yeah, I really think this makes almost a good midpoint for their arc. So yeah, early season 6, because it really marks a point of like they're called into question what their priorities are, and in the end they're like, the Doctor is what we can't give up, and they go with that. And that would have been a lot more powerful before God Conflict's The Girl Who Waited. Yeah.
Also, the fact that this episode is titled The Power of Three and doesn't end up in an explicit polycule formation is a fucking crime.
Okay.
I agree.
Just saying what we're all thinking. Fanfic writers, get at it. I know you already have. Yeah, it's a shame. Also, like, 11... There are some genuine, like, emotional character moments between 11 and the companions, and 11 and the introduction of... I believe this is the introduction of Kate Lethbridge-Stewart.
Yeah, it is.
There's some real power behind that, but at the same time, there's so many, like, oh, 11 is like a fucking child moments that it sort of takes away from when you're supposed to take him seriously later, at least for me. Like, I can't believe I'm about to fucking compliment a Craig episode, but at least in that, it's like, it's clear he's an alien, but he's also competent at being a person. Just like a very, like, weird, out there person. But here it's just like, I get the sense that this is like a child that can't function, and I don't mean that in an ableist way, but like in a very bad writing, we need to play up the lulls kind of way.
Yeah.
So it's just emotional whiplash from that standpoint too. I enjoyed the episode, but it's just sort of like, again, like it really varies scene to scene how much I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. I will say, given where the series, given where the series goes once he takes hold of it, it's kind of astonishing how much better his like the way that Chibnall handles the characters in here, and especially the companions and their relationship to the Doctor, feels much better than pretty much anything he does when he's actually running the show.
It really makes me think that a lot of the character direction, maybe not like the specific writing, but at least the ideas of what he was supposed to be doing with the characters came from Moffat or someone else. Like probably Moffat, since he was the showrunner.
I mean, he does definitely do some stuff with the Torchwood crew when he was doing that show.
Yeah, but that's also another show where he's
mostly in charge.
Maybe.
From what I understand, RTD was fairly hands-off.
I think, again, at least I made this analogy last Chibnall episode of him probably being better when he's playing in a sandbox that isn't his own. I still get that sense here. I think 11 and Amy and Rory and Brian, who is of course like probably Chibnall's creation, might be Stephen Moffat's, who knows, like those like all work well. It's just yeah, I don't know. We'll be talking about the enigma that is the Chibnall era for long after it's passed, I feel like.
Yeah.
And not just because we're haters, but, you know, I'm not going to get into that whole thing. But it's curious, his work at this current era. Now I'm just rambling. But you go.
Yeah. Um. So yeah. One second. So yeah, we have this. The cubes, the slow invasion. Like it's a real funny, like ADHD moment for 11 here, where he's like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I need to go do something, and he does like 15 things, and he's done within like an hour.
Someone get this man FF14. Needs something to do.
I'm now imagining an episode where the Doctor gets into Fortnite and just racks up hundreds and thousands of hours on it. That would be a very Doctor thing to do, to just like get into an online game and just like keep looping a day and just become the greatest in the world at it, and then put it down and never play it again.
Yeah.
No, what happens is that he encounters the MLK module, and he says, this is fucking bullshit, and then Rosa happens, and then it's somehow worse. Anyways.
Yeah. Let me see here. Yeah, we're introduced to Kate Lethbridge Stewart here. Kate Lethbridge Stewart is a character. I have no strong opinions on her either way in pretty much all of her appearances. She's there.
She's kind of milfy.
Kind of. Sorry.
She's very milfy.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
You're very welcome. I'm an expert in MILFs, so this is my area of expertise.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I like her dynamic more with 12, and I think I do, just because
bit,
like
yeah.
11's a very like agreeable, like, oh yes, unit, nostalgia,
yes,
the good old days.
Ooh.
And meanwhile 12 is just like
it.
12's just that boomer who rocked too hard in the 70s who's just like,
Yeah.
oh fuck off. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's more entertaining, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate it because it adds to the lore, I guess, to the like, it maintains some continuity on Earth. Not that it fucking matters much when we get into the more modern years, but it's like it's at least nice to bring up that it's like, hey, this is a big thing. Unit should probably be involved. Whereas Torchwood, who fucking cares? But at least they're here, you know.
Yeah, it would be real. I sure am looking forward to seeing how they're gonna explain Unit being back when they shut him down.
So Unit are part of the deep state, and
oh God.
I mean, I'm just saying that the technology Unit has would definitely be used for policing. I'm just saying.
Fair enough.
There is no way the British government, or like the governments, are just sitting on that and not using it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well,
I think the problem is that this feels like, regardless of the character work done and the plot, it just, at the end of the day, it feels very fillery, and I don't normally say that about Doctor Who, but it's literally like, let's have one more adventure before the big, like, last hurrah, before the mid-series finale, and it feels like there's, like, maybe 3 scenes of consequence that inform, like, how you should feel going into the next episode.
Yeah.
But then, like,
it feels like
it
feels like it's too little too late at this point, when it's completely separate from any sort of arc that could have been. Like, if this was the first part of an arc, then I'd actually think it was kind of good, but it's not.
Yeah. I concur. I'm pretty sure I started because like A Town Called Mercy we already covered was like my first episode. I don't know if this was my second, but I definitely know I started following Doctor Who as it was coming out during Series 7. I think I waited until like Angels before like I caught myself up. So I saw this like really early on and I was just like, "Oh, I bet I'm missing." I remember thinking, "Oh, I must be missing like a ton of like context that like makes all of this like that like slots this into an arc real good." And then like I would care more about Amy and Rory leaving, and I went back through and I was just like, "Well, that didn't happen."
Yeah.
It's an episode that has so much that could be good if it were just in a completely different place, and that is the case for so many Amy and Rory episodes. It feels like there is a very good arc in there if you just rearranged it nearly entirely and cut out a few episodes.
And fucking credit to the actors for like Amy and Rory are still among my favorites. They're not my favorite companions. Like that would, I'm pretty sure Donna and Clara and probably Bill. Martha and definitely Bill would be above them, but the fact that I still hold them in like such esteem, like even above Rose when Rose's story was arguably more coherent, like that fucking speaks to their chemistry and their talent. But even here, like at the very end, it's enough to keep me watching, but not enough to keep me engaged, sadly.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, there's some good Brian moments, not as much as Dinosaurs in the Spaceship, but there's some good.
It is such a shame that he's introduced so late. Like he could have added to so many episodes.
Yeah, definitely.
Like he is, arguably arguably the best character in this episode, and I feel like he would have been so good for other episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Next up in Series 13, Brian Williams.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, like his role here where he's sort of like, hey, what the fuck happened to the other people who traveled with you? And being someone who is much more neutral in this and hasn't really been a companion. It's like, yeah, there's some really great shit here, and it's a damn shame that it just kind of screeches to a halt right here.
Yeah, I miss that. I miss that dynamic because like Rory kind of used to fill that like you make people dangerous to themselves, but then he kind of became what he thought Amy was like falling into, like this trap of being enamored with the Doctor, and they don't really do anything with that until the very last moments in this episode. So yeah, credit to Brian for stepping up, for surpassing his son.
Yeah.
The student has become the master.
Yeah. So yeah, and then the cubes start doing shit. And people start going into cardiac arrest.
It was definitely a plot convenience that it went with cardiac arrest, even though that is definitely not the most efficient way to kill someone. But
honestly, I'm still surprised that even after that they still like survive. 'Cause like,
well, yes, they were dead for several minutes, but apparently if you just restart their hearts, that would counteract the fact that they were.
Yeah, it's like, it's fine.
Dead.
It's fine.
Walk it off. Just a bit of heart failure.
Yeah. And then they meet this dude who, yeah, as I said, I'm pretty sure this dude, what's his fucking name? Steven Berkoff, was apparently very, very bad to work with. And like walked off set and like wouldn't do shit or whatever. So it's just this super lame, like, humans are a contagion, whatever, it's gonna kill off all the humans, meet the tally or whatever. And then he just literally, like, people make fun of this era being he waves the magic buzzy stick and everything fixes itself. But this one is actually just he waves the magic buzzy wand and everything fixes itself. Like, just literally.
This is such a weird, symptomatic problem of sci-fi shows, or of any, like, bad writing in general, that it's like, and you see it in Star Trek all the time, it's just like, here's this super powerful, super mysterious race that nobody's ever heard of that are using tactics that, you know, stump all of our heroes, and we just barely get out of it with the skin of our teeth, and we never see them again.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, I rolled my eyes when we got to that part, and the sad thing is, like, I think you could very easily, like, with just a few tweaks, have made this at least, like, ideologically interesting, because the slow invasion just screams like something that you could, like, allegorically connect to fascism, about how it starts in very, like, innocent ways that you just think are harmless, or, like, a neat, like, joke, or, like, a funny, like, quirk, and then all of a sudden, like, it just, like, paralyzes everybody. I don't know. You'd have to, like, workshop it a bit more, but with this guy saying, like, humans are a contagion,
Yeah.
is just, like, you know, they'll spread across. Or it's like, especially if he came from the future, when, like, humans have, like, canonically just, like, fucking gone everywhere. Like, you know, I'm going back to where it all began to snuff them out, or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm mad.
That's just the plot of Star
It's
Trek
bad.
First Contact.
Yeah.
Basically. Less horny villain, though. Anyways, yeah, it's a shame, and, yeah, I didn't... An actor in that type of role has no fucking business being hard to work with. Like, dude, I understand makeup is hard, but you're in one scene, just...
Yeah, no, I think it literally was a case of the guy being like, oh, like, I'm too good for this, or whatever. Like, that's literally, like, what it was.
If Christopher fucking Eccleston can swallow his pride and put on stupid dark elf makeup for Thor the Dark World, you, sir, can do this. I'm sorry.
Like, if I go... It's not on the wiki, but I think if I go to the TV tropes page... Yeah, the emphasis of the story was heavily altered in post, with a huge chunk of the Shakri scenes being removed. There was an extended action sequence in the climax in which Rory took down the two orderlies. So not only did he fuck up the ending, he also fucked up a Chad Rory moment. The Shakri was not a hologram, and instead was defeated when Amy and Rory attacked him with the syringes retrieved from the orderlies, and the Doctor used his sonic screwdriver on the Shakri's devastating ocular weaponry. Much of this was removed because of Stephen Burkoff's performance. Repeatedly went against the wishes of the director, in some cases just plain refusing to do what he was told, deliberately ruined takes, sometimes by reading his lines as badly as possible, and had several temper tantrums. Virtually all of the footage they shot featuring him was unusable, and the ending as broadcast is all they could cobble together from the few scraps they were able to salvage, plus some pickups filmed later on with just Matt, Karen, and Arthur, as well as some shots of him that were allegedly taken from when the camera was left running between takes, because even the film footage of him walking across the floor could not be used. It was not the intention of Burkoff's character to be a hologram, or for the plot to effectively be resolved entirely by the sonic screwdriver, but that's all they were able to do with what they have.
Oops.
Fuck.
Yeah. Like, what the hell, asshole?
What was like the reason behind that? Like, why was he so pissy?
I don't know. He just was.
With a last name like Burkoff, we can only guess.
Maybe it literally might have just been a, like, I'm better than this, I don't want to be this stupid villain thing on a sci-fi show. That literally might just be it.
Why did he take the goddamn role then?
I don't know. Maybe because it's like I'm going to get paid, but I'm not going to be like I'm not going to. I don't know.
Could also be an agent thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, a mystery. Why do white men do what they do? The world may never know.
Yeah. Anyways. Yeah. So I guess he they it's really kind of funny cuz like fucking Brian is like, make sure they come back safe, and then fucking Angels Take Manhattan happens. Great job. Like, it's kind of honestly like, it's honestly kind of like, I wouldn't have minded that if it wasn't literally the next episode. Like, the fact that it just straight moves on to the next episode from that feels like what makes this not work for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. It's an episode of Doctor Who that I guess technically has more in it than just being another episode of Doctor Who, but because of its placement and other fuckery, it is just another episode of Doctor Who. And I don't know how I can explain that better, but hopefully it gets across what I mean.
Yeah. Anyways, so I guess unless anybody has anything left to say, moving on to ratings. Yeah, okay. As I said, I really honestly kind of vibed with this episode until it drives off a cliff. I think the alien plot here is just terrible. Awful. Like, just, but I think a lot of the ideas that it puts forward and a lot of the stuff with a lot of the stuff like with the Doctor and Amy and Rory is very solid. It just also is kind of like too little too late.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'd give it, I don't know, like a B-, I guess.
Cool. Yeah, this is an episode of Doctor Who, which sadly this is probably the worst time in the series, in this series specifically, to be just an episode of Doctor Who. The chemistry is on point. The writing, flip-flops between being, like, serviceable and, like, pretty damn good, and then just, like, spirals off the deep end. There's moments here that I enjoyed, but it just doesn't salvage the rest of the episode, and perhaps it's unfair of me to look at it within the context of the overall series, but I kind of have to, because that's where a majority of the character writing is trying to get you to go, is like, we're setting up something, and then it's just, what we get is the Angels Take Manhattan, which I'm sure we will have a lot to discuss there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would give this episode a hard D, but even that would give me more enjoyment than this actual episode did.
Yeah.
So, light C. This episode can fuck off, I guess. Maybe I'll return to it later. Who knows?
It was an episode that would have been alright if it were in a completely different context. And without that, It is less than alright.
Yeah, fair enough.
5.5 out of 10.
Alright, fair enough. Yeah. So you can follow us on Twitter at B2TARDISPod. You can support us on Patreon for a number of benefits, such as early access to episodes, the ability to listen in live to episodes being recorded, and potentially even the ability to guest star on an episode of your choosing. I'm Jeff. You can follow me on Twitter at WheatleyDL.
What the fuck, Texas? You can follow me on Twitter at skyhigh9_5. And the rest of us too, if you want.
This is Ersa. Don't find me.
Yeah. And we will see you all next week. I'm not quite sure what episode we're going to be covering, because it's going to be time for our bonus episode again. But we'll figure it out, and we'll probably announce on Twitter whatever it is we do end up covering. But until then, we'll see you all next